What's up, Tyndale, and welcome to episode 2 of CAE Pods. How awesome was that first episode? We hope that you found it helpful and that you learned a lot about how to listen well and how to take notes in class. But that was last time, and we're not going to dwell on the past. I'm Kerrie.
I'm Brent, and today we are going to be going into those second of those language skills that we talked about last time. So there was listening, and now we're going to be looking at speaking. So we'll be talking about speaking in generally, but because this is more focused on the academic side of things, just kind of like note-taking, this time our focus is going to be on how do you do academic presentations well in class.
Right. So academic presentations. I love them. I think because I was a teacher for 5 years, I was so used to just speaking in front of my class, but I know that's not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, we're both kind of teachers here, but the thing is, we still get, or at least I still get nervous. I can't speak for Kerrie, but, even when I'm making these videos, sometimes I find I can get a little bit nervous, even though this time it's just Kerrie and our special guest behind the camera.
Right. So before we even start tackling speaking tips, just remember that nerves are normal. Almost everybody feels them when you present, and hopefully some of the things we talk about today is going to help you feel less nervous next time. So let's start there, Brent. What are some of the strategies that you would give to our listeners on how to prepare and speak well in presentations?
Yeah, so I think what's funny about speaking tips for presentations, at least, is how much of them have little to do with actually what you're actually saying. Now, there's some things. One of the big things I would say is the importance of practicing. Unlike a conversation, you actually have the opportunity to go through these things before you say them out loud. And I think a big one is pronunciation, right? If English is not your first language and you're dealing with words or contexts or concepts that you're like, man, this is complicated stuff. I've never heard these words before. Take that time to practice. I know last time I dropped the word homoousios, which, isn't English, but when you read that word, there's like multiple O's and you're just confused. So take that time, look it up, figure out what it's supposed to sound like, and then actually practice it. Figure out what is the intonation, what syllables are you supposed to be emphasizing. That's going to go a long way to helping you feel prepared when you actually have to say it out loud.
Yeah, and why not record yourself so that you can play it back and you can actually hear how you're sounding. I mean, the first time Brent said homoousios, I thought he was talking about milk, but that's homogeneous.
Yeah, no,
So know what you're talking about.
I think the recording thing is actually really helpful though, right? Because if you might think you're saying something properly, but then you can hear that recording back, you're like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, no, I need to put the emphasis somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So that's super helpful. I think also when you're practicing, it's really good to keep the structure of your presentation in mind. Intros and conclusions are really important. I think sometimes I get the short end of the stick when we're preparing. We sit there and we're like, oh, okay, well, I can just end my presentation and be like, and yeah, that's it. But you want to have something of a little more substance. You want to have something that's going to be memorable for your listeners. So come up with what that final sentence is, that big takeaway that you want your listeners to remember, and aim for that. Kind of move towards that as you're preparing.
Exactly. I mean, even God knows the end from the beginning, and he's our best model, which reminds me, when I was practicing for my first sermon, I had 3 points that I wanted to say to the congregation. And I mean, even if I switched up the order, because I knew my points, I knew how I wanted to end the message and how to land the plane, for lack of better words, and get people to that altar.
Yeah, well, and I think I like that actually. The idea of being able to switch up on the fly. If you have a PowerPoint, that might be a little more difficult, but I do think there's value. No. I think there's value in that, right? Because if you know your content well, if you know what you want to be talking about, then it gives you that flexibility to kind of go in a slightly different direction. So know what those important points are, your 2, 3, 4 big points. And just like we talked about last time with listening, when professors want to emphasize something, they repeat it. Mm-hmm. Well, you repeat those things that are most important. Say them again. Say it a third time. Repeat the stuff that's don't say it like 12 times. People are going to get annoyed. But come up with those really important points and make sure you say them in a couple different ways so that it becomes rememberable. That's not a word. Memorable for the people that are listening.
Well, it could be now. But something I do to help myself before I present is positive affirmations. Like, I'll tell myself, Kerrie's the best. Kerrie can do this. I'm trying to get Brent to also say these things too, that I am the best.
Brent is the best. Brent can do it.
positive affirmations about yourself, but you can say it about others too. Why not? But he did hit something when he said repetition, because repetition is key. And the more you know your information, the more you can repeat it, and it becomes more comfortable. And people notice that when you present.
So yeah, saying those things multiple times can be really helpful, that way of just kind of like psyching yourself up. But I think sometimes, and again, this is not just about speaking tips, right? Like I think if you're presenting well, sometimes the things that matter is how you say it and how you look when you say it. So weird to be talking about in a speaking skills, but what you're wearing actually matters. You might not have to be in full suit and tie. You don't need to rent a ball gown, but you should probably not be in ripped jeans. There is something about a professionalism that comes with how you look that's going to actually help you look and sound, weirdly, more confident. The other thing I would say is eye contact, right? As you've seen, as we're talking here, I look over at Kerrie, I look down the camera, I look around the room. If you're presenting in your class, look at different places in the audience. Make eye contact with your best friend. Make eye contact with your professor. Have ways to just kind of keep your eyes moving across the room so that you're not just, I don't know, aimlessly staring at one spot. That's going to be kind of weird, and it's going to look a little bit unnerving. So having this way of kind of moving around the room is going to help the presentation just feel more natural. And I'd say with that, the big thing is don't just read a script. When you read, things don't sound as natural. We're going to do an ad read in a moment. That's not going to sound like we do right now because it's going to be read. And that's just the reality of things, right? But when you're speaking off the cuff, you pause, you say things a little wrong. I think I just said cough instead of cuff. When you repeat things like this or stammer a little bit or whatever, that's the reality of how we have conversations. It's the reality of talking to people. It's not perfect, and that's okay. In fact, it's actually going to make you feel more natural, which might be a good thing. And the other thing I would just say is clarity over speed. Especially if English isn't your first language, I think there's value in saying, you know what, I'm already nervous, I'm already going to talk faster, so slowing things down. I am a fast talker at the best of times. I have to remind myself, hey, keep it calm, keep it slow. It's more important at this point that you say things well and in a way that's going to be understood, that you can get out those pronunciations that you've practiced, and then you can then make a much more confident sounding presentation for your professor and for your classmates.
Absolutely. Confidence is key. If you look like you know what you're talking about and it sounds like you know what you're talking about, you're going to present well. And like what Brent said, presenting is so different from reading. But we're going to read in a second.
Well, that's still you.
You're not done. And speaking of confidence, that's the perfect transition into this episode's ad read. Because sometimes it's a physical activity, not just podcasts on language skills, that can build someone's confidence. That's right, this episode is brought to you by the Henderson Fitness Center, everyone's favorite gym here on campus. So whether you're a seasoned lifter or a treadmill trotter, or you just need to do something that's active that's not in front of the screen, Henderson's got you covered. We got cardio machines, free weights, a barbell rack, exercise bikes, even a punching bag, because sometimes fitness and stress relief go hand in hand. Yep. That's the perfect place to clear your head, stretch your legs, and remind yourself that moving your body can feel pretty great. That's the Henderson Fitness Center, located on level 200 in the G-Wing, just a little way past the dining hall, because lifting your backpack shouldn't be your biggest workout. And with that, we hope that you're really pumped for our special guest. We're going to welcome you, Francella Brown. We usually call her Fran. Fran, that's okay,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, so Fran is our academic advisor and career specialist here at Tyndale. She's also a Tyndale alumni who graduated with a BA in psychology. Yay, fellow psych major. Fun fact about Fran, she's an ambivert, meaning she's going to match our high energy and enthusiasm, and then she's probably going to head home and then rotate napping and binge watching Netflix for 3 days.
Yes, yeah. And you guys are high energy. So it might be 4 days that I'm going to head home and do nothing.
Rest of the week.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, as a fellow psych major, Fran loves to study and observe human behavior, making her the perfect person that we should talk to on how to mentally prepare yourself for presentations. So, Fran,
Yes.
welcome to this podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've observed when it comes to how people present?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a huge psychological component when it comes to presenting, right? So earlier you spoke about some really great things. You talked about like the technicalities of practicing and rehearsing. You spoke about, pronunciation, enunciation. You spoke about having a good introduction and conclusion, and how to present yourself, which is really great. But when you get in front of an audience of people you do not know, you're really concerned with what they think about you. And that's going to cause you to get inside of your head. And when you're up there and you're talking and you're trying to remember what it is that you have to say, that you're over concerned with that.
Yeah.
And if you are also somebody who is a multilingual or person, English is either your second or third or fourth language, you're also going to be thinking about that. You're also going to be concerned with how it is that I sound. So much stuff is going on. And that's why stage fright is a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we talked about nerves earlier, and I think, just because somebody is able to kind of, get over it super easily or something, that might not feel like, or it might seem like that on the surface, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's always the case. I know when I get really nervous, usually before I get up to present, I'm like, oof. So I'll just take a big breath. I'll be like, maybe not quite that loudly, but I'll try and take a breath just to keep myself calm, or say a quick prayer if you're so inclined. Jesus, help calm the nerves as I present, help me to do well on this. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. We're not looking for anything super elaborate, but finding those little things that are going to work for you. So Fran, do you have any recommendations for how to overcome stage fright?
Yeah, well, you talked about practicing and preparation. We're practicing and preparing to give a great presentation for different reasons. To make sure that you get that information across properly, to make sure that you get a good grade, right?
Fair.
But so we're talking about academic stuff,
Yeah.
so, right? But how about also considering preparing and practicing to get comfortable with public speaking? Because at the end of the day, this is something that's probably going to continue to come up throughout your life. You can be interviewing for a job. That's kind of presenting yourself, right? If you are in a ministry degree of some sort and you're going into perhaps preaching, you're going to be talking in front of people quite a bit, or that could just be a part of your job on a regular basis. So getting comfortable with the fact that this is something that's going to be a part of life is going to help you not dread it every time it comes up.
Right.
Yeah.
Or at the very least be able to overcome it,
Yeah.
right? I think I remember I heard from a pastor once who said every time he spoke, and he spoke regularly, he got kind of he felt a little sick.
Yeah.
Thankfully nothing beyond that, but felt a little sick, and I think that is the reality, right? The public speaking doesn't stop.
Yes.
But there are ways to grow comfortable with those kinds of things.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you could practice becoming comfortable with public speaking, there's 3 things that you'd want to concentrate on. So let me hit them first, and then we're going to go over them. Okay. So first, get comfortable.
Presentation, that's good. Yeah,
yes, exactly. Thank you very much. Do you see that I'm doing this? Come on. This is planned. May seem natural, but we know what we're doing. All right. So first things first, we're going to talk about getting comfortable in front of an audience.
Good.
Then we're going to get comfortable with possibly winging it if you ever have to on the spot, and that happens sometimes. And then the big one, we're going to practice getting comfortable with being vulnerable.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah. Right? Okay, so first we're going to talk about getting comfortable in front of an audience. You notice when I say audience, I didn't say friends and family. I said audience.
Yeah.
There is a difference. An audience, it can be a whole lot of people. It can be people that you don't know. And it can be a sea of faces that look like this. People don't realize what their resting face looks like. They could have listened to a bunch of presentations already.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to get comfortable with talking. Exactly. Please don't do that to your professors and to your fellow classmates. We don't realize we don't do that. But I mean, you're not really thinking about it. So getting comfortable speaking in front of people that you don't know, you're a very different person when you're in front of people that you don't know compared to when you're with your family and when you're friends, right? You're amazing. You're an amazing human being. That's why you have friends. So you want to be that kind of person as much as possible speaking in front of an audience. So how would you do that? We'll start off with your practicing in front of friends, in front of family, and then see if you can graduate up to speaking in front of people you don't know and practice that. So you look scared, but that's okay. Again, this is how you're overcoming it. Where are you going to find people on campus or whatever that you don't know?
Go into the hallways.
Go into the hallways.
Go to the dining hall.
Go to the dining hall, right? In class, after class. I know you people are sometimes rushing out, but just say, can anybody volunteer to just sit and listen to me speak for a few minutes? I don't need feedback. Don't get feedback. You don't need, constructive feedback or anything like that. You just want to get comfortable. Walking up to a stranger and asking, can I speak to you for 5 minutes, is going to help you get comfortable regardless. So practice that.
Yeah. Something that really helps me when I have to present is speaking in front of a mirror. Now, I know it sounds kind of silly, but the trick is if you look at yourself in a mirror, you can see your facial expression. Going back to like what Fran was saying about your resting face. Mine is a smile, guys. But I know not everybody's like that. But I do notice that when I'm nervous, I bite my lip. Well, how do I know that? Because I see my face in the mirror.
Yeah.
So I can look at things that I like what I'm doing and continue that, like, oh, I made eye contact, or things I don't like, oh, maybe I shouldn't bite my lip as much, because again, going back to confidence, and it's if you look confident, that's what we're going for.
Yeah.
What else, Fran?
Okay, so I talked about getting comfortable and practicing winging it. Okay, so what happens if you've got your script in front of you and you're following along? Not too much, not too much.
Thank you.
Right.
Not reading.
Not reading off your paper.
Exactly. But it's there for you to be comfortable. What happens if you all of a sudden kind of freeze up, which can happen? And then you're like, where was I? If you're a rambler like me, you're like, where do I go back to? And you suddenly can't find yourself on the script. Or if somebody asks a question in the middle of your presentation when it wasn't Q&A kind of thing. Exactly. And you're like, now I got to get back to my stuff. If you know your information, and I'm not talking about memorizing line for line, but if you just know it, you're comfortable with that information, you can wing it if you have to. And again, winging it is something that's a lot closer to just speaking in a conversation than when you're doing, like a presentation. That's when the natural you is going to come out and about. So how about asking some friends and some family to just ask you random questions about your presentation? You don't have to tell them what it's about. You can just say, just ask me anything. Right. And then I've got to, based off of my knowledge that I have, I've got to answer you. Basically what you're doing is you're testing how much you know. We do this for when we're taking tests anyways. When we're studying for tests, test how much you know, and what you don't know, go back and get confident and comfortable with that information.
And that's great to combine with some of the other things too, right? Because you've already spent time learning how to say certain words, kind of coming up with your main ideas. Now you can see, hey, on the fly, can I jump into point number 2?
Right.
Because that's what they were asking about. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and that spontaneity is what's going to perk up your audience and then make things a lot more interesting. All right, so practice winging it so that if you have to, you can. Third, practice being vulnerable. Okay, so everyone's heart that just went boom. Let's go back to 1. Step 1. Say a prayer. Take your deep breath.
Yeah.
And vulnerability is not something that we want, especially in front of a bunch of people that we don't know. But vulnerability is the one thing that you and everyone in the room can relate to. Right? Yeah. So when you're standing in front of an audience, like we talked about, and you've got that, they've got like that kind of energy and that kind of resting face, and you're really nervous and you have to get out the nerves, Find a way to bridge that chasm, that gap between your audience, people that you don't know, and yourself by making something relatable. So what if you get up in front of them and tell them the truth? What if you say, hi, I'm nervous. What if you say that? What if you say, you know what? English is not my first language and I'm a little bit nervous about this. Be nice to me, right? What if you say that? What if you say, who here hates public speaking just like me? Okay? And so what were your reactions naturally right there?
We were laughing.
You laughed. So that's most likely what's going to happen. Everyone's going to be like, this person's kind of funny, or this person is relatable. And suddenly you've made smaller that gap, and you're going to see them smile instead of having that face that they don't really know. You're going to see them perk up a little bit, and they're going to lean in and be interested, especially if this is like the third or fourth presentation in class that they've heard. They're going to be like, oh, this person is quite interesting because now they're relatable. Yeah. Right. So bridge that gap, be a little bit vulnerable. Your nerves are going to go down. Their interest and their friendliness is going to go up. And then maybe you're not going to be so much in your head.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, something that I've heard, I don't do it myself, but I've always heard if you picture everyone in your underwear, maybe for Tyndale purposes, their sweatshirts or t-shirts.
Fuzzy slippers.
Yeah.
That helps. And it's like, well, why? What's the science behind that? And it's like, if you can picture people in a vulnerable position, I'm going to use that word again, or in a comfortable position, it takes the pressure off your shoulders. And it goes back to what Fran was saying about being more relatable, because it's not so much about like my professors or my colleagues that I'm presenting to, but it's like fellow human beings and people who also get nervous.
Yeah. So bottom line is public speaking is going to be something that you're going to be doing quite a bit throughout your life. Yeah. So how about, instead of going through this process every time of thinking about it, nerve-wracking, I hate it, I'm not looking forward to it, I'm nervous, I'm scared. You get up there, I hate this. When it's done, I never want to do this again. That is exhausting. Yeah. How about being like, this is life? You know, I'm a pretty interesting person. I have something to say, and these are people who need to hear it, and let's just get used to this being the norm.
Well, you did really have good things to say today, Fran, so thank you so much. Just to recap then what we've all talked about today. We've talked a little bit about the importance of preparation, because this isn't just a conversation that you're having with a friend in the hall, so you want to make sure that you have spent that time going over your ideas, what's the structure of what you're going to talk about, do I know how to say all the words that I need to say, so that you can present well. We talked a little bit about how appearance does actually sort of matter, at least a little bit, when it comes to presentation. Again, you don't need to be super fancy, but look respectable. That's going to go a long way to building confidence. But also just the idea of not just reading off of a page. As much as that might feel easier, and maybe, I don't know, if you have to, I understand. Like, we're not saying never read something. But if possible, it's always good to be more conversational and natural with these things. That's going to, again, make you feel more confident, and as we learned, confidence is key with these things. And then Fran shared a lot about comfortability. Yes. Comfortability? Sure. We'll go with that, yeah. Just this idea of being comfortable presenting to other people that aren't just your nearer family friends, though those can be very effective ways to get practice in as well. Comfortable winging it and just kind of knowing your stuff off the top of your head as you need to, and being comfortable with being vulnerable. As intimidating as that might sound, that's what's going to make you relatable to the people around you. Yeah. This has been great. Thank you, Fran. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We will be back next semester with episode 3 of our podcast, where we'll be taking a look at that third language skill. Yes, language skill, reading. But until then, all the best with your semester. Happy learning.
Happy learning.
Take care, everyone.